So we can start, Rutuja, now.
Yeah, sure. So good morning all to this fourth episode of Gyaniki Tech Talk. If you have not attended previously any of our Tech Talks, we just wanted to highlight that Gyaniki is basically a platform, and we have started this initiative of weekly basis Tech Talks with the expertise in this e-mobility domain. And today we are very fortunate to have Mr. Christie Fernandez with us today. So I'll just briefly introduce him. So Christy is the founder of SOOORYA EV. His vision is to basically create positive impact on clean transportation and energy. He is quoted in publications and have been invited to speak at conference globally on innovation in automobile industry, then renewable energy, battery swapping, and EVs. So if you are a e-mobility or a future mobility enthusiast, we would definitely recommend that you should or must follow EV follow Christy for his insights on EV domain. So Christy, we are very privileged to have you today for our fourth episode of Gyaniki Tech Talk. And before we move towards the session, I would request you to share a few words or thoughts with the participants. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, thanks, Ratuja, for having me, and thanks, Mr. Shekhar, for inviting me. It's a wonderful initiative that you'll have. I think there's Gyaniki talks every Saturday. That's a very good initiative of sharing of knowledge. What needs to be done is actually sharing of a lot of knowledge, and this initiative of yours is really good. Um, I had a look at some of the videos of your past talks. A lot of insights you can get from the speakers, and I think the questions that you'll ask are also very insightful. So I wish you a lot of success in taking this forward, and I think together we can all move towards clean energy and clean transportation.
Yeah. Thank you, Christy, for your motivation. This will definitely help us to, move successfully ahead in this journey what we have started together. Thank you so much. So, Shekhar, over to you for
Yeah.
uh, questions.
So,
Yeah.
so Christy, again, welcome, wholeheartedly welcoming you to the discussion today. I'm glad that I've got the chance. I'm a stand-in host. Our regular host is on a weekend trip today, so I have got this opportunity to stand in place of Harsh Shah, and it's good that I get to talk to you because I've been an avid follower. In fact, our entire team is an avid follower of yours on LinkedIn. Just because you're able to bring so many things together and connect so many dots with your simple posts and information, and truly sharing the information without having a bias attached to it. That's the real cool thing. So as we begin, can you share the journey of Surya EV and give us some background to see what drives the passion for you?
Okay. It's a long journey and a long story too. So let me try and not what do you say, dwell on it too long. But I've been an entrepreneur for a few decades now, and I started my career selling computers. So about 2, 3 decades ago, when I started selling computers, computers were seen as you know um, a device that was actually making people lose jobs. And every time I sold a computer, there was also a little bit of guilt that someone is going to lose their job. But at the same time, computers have created a lot of jobs, created a lot of opportunities, and I find the automobile industry in a similar situation. People are afraid of job losses, and that's a fact. But there is also going to be a lot more opportunities than what the existing industry had. Um, you know, so this is from an industry perspective. But personally, why did I get into this? That's of course. I mean, there are too many dots to connect and tell you right now. But one was when you look around and you see people traveling, and you see people traveling in a bit of inhuman conditions, I kind of felt that something needed to be done about it, especially for last mile transportation. Today, there are a lot of women folk who are also getting into the job market, and they are also cramped into vehicles that are not very conducive for them to travel in. And I also realized that public transportation is not going to be adequate. Public transport is going to, take its own time. And at the same time, there were a lot of, I would say, small-time entrepreneurs who saw this opportunity and started creating vehicles for this segment. So we had a lot of these share autos that were coming up, built in small factories, which looked very dangerous.
Yes.
But they were at the same time quite sturdy. I didn't see too many accidents happening with people traveling in it, except that instead of a vehicle built for might be 6 or 8 passengers, they were about at least about 12 passengers in it. I started off by thinking about, with EVs, there might be an opportunity to design a vehicle that will be more comfortable and affordable for this particular segment. And I thought, if these vehicles can be built in small, by small enterprises in a bit of unorganized fashion, without thought going into engineering and design, I thought maybe I would be able to quickly come up with a vehicle for this segment, and that got me into this particular space. So for me, I've always been focused on the affordable last mile mobility, because I felt that's a big segment that is growing, but is not being catered to by the organized sector. Of course, over the years, the Tatas and the Mahindras came out with 8-seater vehicle, the Tata Magic and the Mahindra vehicle. But again, if you look at them, they were not really very well designed or comfortable or catering to all segments of the society. So the choice was between an auto rickshaw ride, between a bus ride, and between a share auto ride, and or a taxi ride. But a taxi ride is not affordable for everyone. So I was looking at the segment that would like to go in a taxi but can't afford it, and but are traveling in these shared autos and electric rickshaws. Electric rickshaw is also something that I really appreciate. That it is what you say. It's been a groundswell. About 1.5 million electric rickshaws today are offering affordable transportation. But what's a little bit concerning is the design of the vehicle. I mean, right from an aesthetics perspective to, of course, design and engineering. And I felt that, if we want to be seen as a developed country, then our transportation also needs to be well designed. And today, if you look at it from globally, there are Western countries that are also designing such vehicles, but they bring in a good design element into it. I also traveled across the ASEAN region to see, what the needs are in this market. So the problems that we have in India are not only in India; it's also there in the ASEAN region. For example, if you go to Philippines, you have the jeepneys. Now, jeepneys are again vehicles that are being built in small workshops using second-hand engines and bodies that are being built locally. All of them are now very highly polluting, and the government, there are over 100,000 of such jeepneys in Philippines that the government wants to convert to electric. But they are not able to find a suitable electric vehicle to replace these jeepneys. Likewise, if you go to Cambodia or Vietnam, you'll find a motorcycle with carriage on the side called trikes. So again, it's vehicles that are being developed and produced locally by small-time entrepreneurs. So a lot of engineering design, are not going into these vehicles. Likewise, of course, in Thailand, you have the tuk-tuks, which are similar to our auto rickshaws in India. So all over the developing world, you'll find that there is a need for last mile transport, for affordable last mile transport, but there are no suitable vehicles for it. So, but if you look at the ride-hailing companies, the Ola and the Uber and the Grab over here, or the Gojek in this region, they all started offering ride share, but all of them are using the same passenger car for ride sharing, which is not very conducive. It's not also able to provide the right economics. I also looked at the ride-hailing business and why they are not very profitable. So there are two parts to it. One is the consumer is not willing to pay a higher fare for a ride, and two, the fares at which the consumer is willing to pay for a ride, it's not economical. And the main reason why it's not economical is that they don't have a right vehicle for their business. So the ride-hailing business or the taxi business, unfortunately, there are no manufacturers catering to it. The only vehicle that has been designed for the taxi business is the London Black Cab. And now they have also electrified the London Black Cab. But that's for the developed world. So I found that there is a big opportunity, an unmet demand, and I felt that with good engineering and good design, we would be able to bring out a vehicle that is affordable, comfortable, and eco-friendly in the market. So that's where I started with. But I also knew that there are many issues for this particular segment, and might be, if you want, I can then get into the pain points which we are trying to address.
Right. Thanks a lot, Christie. So this is really helpful, and you've covered the complete landscape for us as well. So let me ask you a bit more on where do you see is the settling point for urban mobility? Where does it all come, and we get the holy grail for urban mobility? What's the roadmap in your mind?
Yeah. So living in Singapore, I think, gives you a lot of insights, and it's an advantage because Singapore has one of the best road transport systems in the world. I would like to say also the best road transport system in the world. To start with, they have a policy which is a car light policy. That means that they limit the number of cars that come out into the road that people can buy every year, and it's very expensive to own a car. But at the same time, what they have done is they've made it very comfortable for anyone to use public transport. When I say public transport, is right from taxis to buses to metros. And the kind of network that they have over here is fantastic. Every train station is just 3-4 bus stops away from from where you live, and most of the bus stops are walking distance from where you live. So it's kind of well planned, well organized, and Singapore is already looking forward to a multimodal transport, seamless multimodal transport. So they're moving in that direction. So I foresee that all urban areas will have to look at a seamless multimodal transport. We'll have to see how can a commuter travel from point A to point B in the shortest time and at the most affordable fare with comfort and safety. If you look at Singapore, one is taxis, and where it's very, where it's not very affordable to take a cab. So it's very convenient. You just book a cab and then you go down and the cab is waiting for you. So it's very convenient for people to not own a car. Two, for people who need to use public transport, it's very easy to walk to a bus station. They have covered paths where people can walk towards a bus station and then from there get into a metro and get anywhere they want to. So multimodal transport, seamless multimodal transport, I think is something that all cities, all urban areas will have to move towards. And it's not just transport, but I also think urban development, urban planning needs to also focus on how can you, build, what do you say, urban skates where people don't have, where everything can happen within a short distance. So Singapore is looking at a 20-minute walk kind of a city or a town and a 40-minute kind of city. So this is what we need to be looking at. We need to be looking at multimodal transport. We need to be looking at personal transport. Singapore is also laying a lot of cycle tracks, and they're also having a policy for personal mobility devices. So personal mobility devices, cycles, moving to bus stops, moving to trains, moving to taxis. I think seamlessly. I think that's the future for transportation.
Okay. So, very well put, Christy. Now, in this, the charging ecosystem and the infrastructure regarding that also has to play a very important role
Yeah.
when enabling all this. And this has been a debate in our country, wherein uh, it's a given that we have always struggled with infrastructure. We have always needed infrastructure 10 years before it finally showed up, and by the time it showed up, it was already outdated.
Yeah.
So what are the tips? How does the ecosystem come together in terms of this charging enablement in the urban areas?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's a very challenging issue. And I think we need to look at it from the right perspectives. I'd like to just step back a little and say that if we talk about electric vehicles, a lot of it, of course, comes from the Western world. The concepts and the ideas and the technologies. Um, but all of these electric vehicles, or most of these electric vehicles, are built for speed. They're built for range, and they're built for fast charging. Now, that's a need of the developed world. I would say countries like India, our needs are quite different. And I think the vehicles that the Tatas and the Mahindras are coming out with are, more conducive for our environment. So one is we don't need vehicles that need to travel very far. Again, when I'm talking about there are different segments. So I'm talking about mobility within a urban landscape. We don't need vehicles that travel very far. Most of the on an average, I think people travel less than 40, 50 kilometers per day. Two is we don't need a vehicle that travels very fast because most of our cities are congested and we travel at on an average of, I would say, 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers per hour. And so the kind of vehicles that we need needs to be quite different and, more what you say, tuned towards our environment. So if we, for example, build vehicles that are, say there are high voltage vehicles and there are low voltage vehicles. And with electric vehicles, I think the opportunity is to kind of kind of define the vehicle segments a lot more closely. If you look at legacy automobile industry, the segmentation has been very broad, and there is there you use a vehicle that weighs over 2,000 kgs to travel a weight of say 100 200 kgs, which is not very efficient. So likewise with electric vehicles, if you don't right size the vehicle, then you're making it very inefficient. For example, if you build for range and you carry say a 40 kilowatt hour or a 50 kilowatt hour battery pack, the batteries itself will weigh about 400 500 kgs. Yeah, and then because of the additional weight, you need to have a more powerful motor as well, and the efficiency then goes down. So right sizing of vehicles, I think, would kind of reduce the charging problems. So if a vehicle, for example, can be charged, a personal vehicle which you use on a daily basis to travel say 40, 50 kilometers, and you come home and you have a wireless charging pad, and you just come park and move on, that would be very ideal for most people. And for those occasions when you need to really travel long distance, might be once a month, or you should be able to hire or lease hire a vehicle, and a bigger vehicle, an SUV, and then take it out. So ownership of vehicle, I think, is also a constraint, and relooking at right sizing of vehicles can actually reduce the constraint of charging. All said and done, with electric vehicles, the power is available almost everywhere. Every residence, for example, is a source of power. I was, in fact, watching this serial that is launched on Apple TV, The Long Way Up. And so there are a set of two guys who travel on electric Harley Davidson bikes from right from South America up to North America, and along with two Rivian prototype vehicles. It's a very interesting ride. They show how with electric vehicle, actually charge points are available everywhere, except that because of the size of the battery and the power requirement, sometimes the charge points are not sufficient to charge the vehicle. So there are other ways in which you can overcome the charging you know um, uh, constraints. Swappable batteries is one of the options that is also there. So we need to look at multiple options for charging. And I think if we look at it, one, right sizing the vehicle, and then two, looking at appropriate charging or swapping needs, I think we would be able to solve this problem.
Okay, thanks, Christy. So on the point of the swapping and charging of the batteries, uh, the Surya has a concept of this swappable solar rechargeable batteries. So can you tell us a bit more about that on what it really entails?
Yeah. So when we started working on this vehicle, our segment is the fleet segment. So we kind of looked at, what are the needs of this particular segment, what are the pain points of this segment. So the segment that we are catering to, actually, there are multiple, customers needs that we need to cater to. One is you have the operator needs, then you have the driver owner needs, and then you have the consumer needs. So if you look at the operator needs, they would like to have a plug and play vehicle, so that they are able to upload a lot of data from the vehicle, and their app runs more efficiently on the vehicle. From a driver owner needs, one is they're looking at a vehicle that can, give them maximum profits. So um, every day they have a certain amount of time that they can expend, and with that time that they expend, what is the maximum return that they can get from it. So if they have a vehicle, they would like to use the vehicle without any downtime. So charging downtime is very crucial or very critical for the fleet segment. So no matter what you do, you can't have you can't afford downtime for charging. And if you look at today's charging solutions, any vehicle will need to at least spend a couple of hours charging the vehicle. So we realize that that is not going to work in the fleet segment. So we need to find a solution for this particular crucial need of the fleet segment. So what we are developing, right from the beginning, of course, we looked at having swappable batteries. At that point of time, swappable batteries were not there in the market. So luckily now, over the last 3-4 years, there is an ecosystem that has been developed for swappable batteries, but not for the four-wheeler segment. So it's today available for the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler segment. So we are looking at our vehicle is being designed such that there is multiple options for charging. So either you can charge the vehicle directly, or you can charge the vehicle, by swapping out batteries. And we also have a solar roof for charging the vehicle. So when it comes to swappable batteries, so our vehicle architecture is, as a fixed plus swappable battery architecture, which is very unique in this segment. Of course, I can't go into details. There is some IP, and we'll be able to reveal more when we launch the vehicle. But basically, it would be as convenient as what is available today in the market. What the three-wheeler guys use to swap batteries. So swappable batteries also needs to be charged. So and we also foresee a lot of our vehicles out there in rural areas, and where they don't have access to electricity. So we are also trying to build an ecosystem where with a solar panel kit and batteries, there would be small enterprises that would be able to recharge swappable batteries. And to make it more profitable, we are also trying to see how these same batteries can be used to power, homes and small businesses. Jacob?
Thanks, and that some better back. So when do we see Soorya EV on the?
Yeah.
Do we see it in India?
Yeah. So the pandemic has kind of disrupted our plans. This almost this entire year is gone by without too much happening. There's uncertainty, and lack of international travel is kind of slow down things quite a bit for us this year. We hope in the next 18 to 24 months we would be able to have a prototype ready and launch a vehicle in the market.
Okay. Now, part of your mission is to move away from the traditional manufacturing setups, the big factories, and look into a lean manufacturing and distributed assembly mechanisms. And you have been vocal about that. Can you share something more on how this thought has been evolving?
Yeah. So when I got into this business, I looked at it and everyone was jumping into building a prototype quickly, and initially even I kind of explored it, but then I realized that unless you build a prototype that is ready for manufacturing, it's of no use. Today there are lots of companies that have prototypes, but they're not able to move to the next stage because designing a prototype and designing a prototype for manufacturing is quite different. So then, when we look at it from a manufacturing perspective, we realize that there is a lot of inefficiencies in automobile manufacturing, in legacy automobile manufacturing. Of course, the industry is 100 years old, and so it's evolved quite a lot. But over the years, it has also built up a lot of flab. So this concept of one large factory started off when almost all components were made within the factory. But over the years, even in legacy automobile industry, more than 40% is outsourced. So it really doesn't make sense. For example, having one large factory. For example, in India, if you have one large factory, say in Gujarat, and your tires are coming from, say, the south, from Chennai, or from one of these factories down south, it doesn't make sense moving 4 sets of tires, for each vehicle all the way up north, and then shipping that vehicle with those 4 sets of tires back down south. So we went a little bit more deeper into, the manufacturing. Of course, there have been, concepts like just-in-time manufacturing and all that came in to help with assembly line manufacturing. But they also have their own constraints. For example, if there is one part that is, is not available, then the entire assembly line comes to a standstill. So when we looked at the electric vehicle, we looked at the components that go into it, we looked at the way it is moving forward. We realized that modular components are going to become more prevalent in the market. Even large, tier one suppliers like Bosch and all that are not going to be supplying just a motor. They're going to be supplying the entire drivetrain, including the axles if required. So we felt that a lot of these components that are going to be coming from suppliers are going to be modular in nature because one, they're fewer in number compared to ICE. So more of the tier one suppliers would like to actually offer modules, rather than just single components. So we then also studied the supply chain management and um, the virtual manufacturing concepts and the digital twin, and we realized that it might be more efficient to have micro factories, closer to markets. So in a country like India, for example, instead of having one large manufacturing plant, it might make sense to have might be 5 to 10 micro factories spread across multiple states in a large country such as India. Likewise for other markets too. It doesn't make sense shipping a vehicle because unlike a mobile where everything is very compact, all parts are very compact, and what you ship is the volume of the product. Whereas in a car, if you have to build up a car and a vehicle and ship it, there is a lot of volume that is which is just air. It's so it's not very efficient. So we looked at many more aspects, and then we realized that instead of assembly line, a platform-based approach to manufacturing might be more profitable, um, um, because most of the core components today are available from multiple suppliers, and right from the beginning we kind of decided that we're not going to get into our own battery manufacturing or our own motor manufacturing. We realized that there is a lot of expertise and there is a lot of suppliers out there in the market who would be more efficient, because the volumes that they would be catering to is much larger than the volumes that we would as a single manufacturer, a single brand manufacturer. So we are also then realized that the vehicle has to be designed differently. So in a way, for example, if you look at furniture, IKEA has designed furniture completely different. They kind of redefined how furniture is manufactured. They in fact removed the carpenter out of the equation. They removed a lot of process that goes into furniture manufacturing. So we are looking at trying to do something similar in the automobile industry. So we're kind of redefining how the vehicle is designed, engineered, and manufactured. It's challenging. It's a lot of innovation. In a way, what we are trying to do what Steve Jobs did about 20 years ago when most computers were boxes. He came out with his iMac, which was a cute-looking all-in-one computer with most of the vehicles were steel boxes and in drab grays and blacks. He came out with colorful, translucent shells for the computer, and all-in-one computer iMac. So we are also with electric vehicles, with electric drivetrains, there is an opportunity for us to move away from traditional automobile design and re-engineer the entire product, to kind of really make use of the electric drivetrain, technology. Apple, for example, designed a vehicle such that you didn't need any tools to open the computer. You could actually use your fingers and open a computer, the Apple computer. So we are trying to make it very easy to assemble, to manufacture it. It's more of assembly. Make it easy for servicing the vehicle. Make it easy for upgrading the vehicle. So there would be a lot of innovation that we would be bringing into our vehicle design and architecture.
That's really awesome, and the analogies with IKEA, I've never heard it anywhere else in the automotive world. So this is definitely innovative thought process. So I'm glad to see that you are taking it forward. Uh, so one thing which ties in with this question, most of the countries, especially India right now, have been a lot about talking a lot about localization or the what we call as the Atmanirbhar initiative, and kind of it tunes well with this micro factory initiative, and they seem to be connecting with each other. What are your thoughts on this localization in the Asia Pacific region, and where do you see the uh, roadmaps of the governments taking the countries?
Yeah. So I would say localization for a large country like India, I think, is important. And India, all said and done, is they call is a subcontinent. So for ages we have kind of been self-sufficient. The only product that we are not self-sufficient is actually fossil fuels. And luckily now, with electric vehicles, the energy that requires to power these vehicles can be produced, within the country. So when we talk about local production, I think we should start focusing on, moving very quickly to electric vehicles, because $100 billion worth of fossil fuels we import every year. And if we can, move away from importing $100 billion worth of polluting fossil fuels every year into producing our own renewable energy, I think that would be one big step for the country, right from an energy security perspective, as well as from, forex losses that goes out, in purchasing these fossil fuels. So when it comes to electric vehicles, I think the government needs to be a little bit more, suddenly with electric vehicles, we are jumping into trying to make it 100% within the country, which I think it's good to have an ambition, but I don't think it's good to enforce it right from the beginning. Even if you look at the legacy automobile industry, how did it start off with Maruti? And Maruti, for a very long time, the engine and the gearbox was all coming from outside. And it took a couple of decades before we were able to kind of, build the entire ecosystem to supply parts and components for the automobile industry locally. Likewise, I would say for electric vehicles, though we should have the ambition to make everything locally, I think we shouldn't penalize the electric vehicle startups and the industry if they need to import components, because all said and done, we need to achieve economics of scale. And at the beginning, it's not going to be we are not going to get there unless it's going to take some time before we get there. But I would say that it is important that the government, kind of funds battery manufacturers to come and manufacture battery cells within the country. I think that's very important. That's a critical component. And I think the government also needs to, secure raw material supplies from within the country and outside the country for battery manufacturing, and also for magnets and rare earths that go into motor manufacturing. So India also, I think, needs to start exploring a lot more for such materials within the country. I'm sure that if we look, we might be able to find such deposits within the country.
Good. So before I move to the next question, I would like the audience to put in their questions on the chat window so that we can go to them next. So please put in your questions if you have any for Christie. Christie, you mentioned about right sizing the vehicle. That is very critical aspect. Similarly, right sizing the charging network would also be aspect. There are two ways to move about it. You have fixed chargers, or you have the swappable, you have fixed batteries or the swappable batteries. Uh, what is the number of chargers per vehicle in terms of the fixed batteries, uh, or in terms of the swappable batteries, what is the ideal number of swappable packs per vehicle that need to be there in the ecosystem in order to for it to be successful?
Yeah, so I'll take the second part because that's more easy to address. If you look at swappable batteries today, vehicles can also be sold without the batteries. Especially swappable battery vehicles. So the numbers, the quantities of batteries that are required, the location where the batteries are required, all of them can actually be determined. And most of these swappable batteries will actually go into a very different. So I think we can address this problem if we look at it, very localized. We don't have to look at the country as a whole. We don't need to say that okay, per every 2 kilometers or every 5 kilometers, we need to have such facilities. This would crop up wherever there is an ecosystem, wherever there is a need, for such vehicles, and this can be very easily determined. Today with telematics and so that a lot of data, a lot of locations, vehicle locations, all of it can be determined. So setting up swappable battery stations and determining the number of battery packs that are required. There are already a few players out there in the market who see it as a business, and and this can be both an organized and a kind of unorganized business, similar to how petrol is sold in bottles in remote locations across the country. And solar can also be used to recharge batteries. India, luckily, has also have a lot of solar farms, and I would say a lot of solar power producers might find recharging of batteries that go into electric vehicles and inverters more profitable than supplying it to the grid. So swappable batteries, I don't think there is going to be an issue at all. When it comes to charging network, again, we need to define it depending on the type of vehicles that we need to charge. For example, there might be bus fleets. Now that again might be relatively easier for you to kind of cater to those needs because they would need fast charging and and things like that. The only issue is for passenger cars, electric passenger cars that require fast charging, especially when they are traveling long distance and things like that. So, again, fortunately, the highways are are built today across India, across connecting major cities in India, and there are already pit stops that are being built across the highways. So it would make sense for solar farms to kind of set up these charging stations which can be powered by solar energy. Already in UK, surprisingly, they are setting up one such facility over there and planning to set up a lot more such facilities over there. When it comes to urban spaces and fast charging, I would say today most people who can afford a vehicle in India, especially the luxury vehicles, which requires fast charging, able to set up such facilities either in their home or offices or wherever. A lot of fast charging can also be set up in corporates. And I would say we shouldn't worry too much about passenger cars because I think if we cater to the needs of the fleet segment, the buses, the taxis, the rideshare vehicles, that infrastructure might come in handy later on for also the passenger car segment.
Okay. Thanks, Christy. So one question again regarding Surya is autonomicity in the goal plan of Surya, and to what levels is autonomous being considered?
Yeah. When I started off, that was where I wanted to get into, immediately. I thought, robo taxis, autonomous vehicles would be a great leap forward. And when I came to Singapore about 4 years ago, I had a ride in one of these autonomous vehicles. So the technology, I've also kind of, interacted with a lot of autonomous tech companies. The tech is almost there. What is required now is a very conducive environment for autonomous vehicles. So autonomous vehicles can fly wherever the environment is made conducive for it. Like how today, fossil fuel vehicles are able to fly wherever there's an environment that is made conducive for it. In urban areas, for example, we have traffic signals and we have rules and things like that. But for an autonomous vehicle, a traffic signal is not going to make is not important. I think what we would need is a lot of infrastructure built into the road, which can talk to these autonomous vehicles, and make it conducive for them to operate. One way forward would be if there is dedicated lanes for autonomous vehicles, then it's possible. But of course, in the developing world, especially in countries like India, where rules are not followed, autonomous vehicles can only work where rules are adhered to, everyone follows the rules. I don't foresee autonomous vehicles taking off, at least in the next few decades, in urban transport in the developing world or in a country like India. But autonomous vehicles can work in certain specific applications. They can work, for example, say in agriculture. I foresee a lot of autonomous vehicles operating in agriculture. The climatic conditions are very harsh, and not everyone wants to be working in fields. So autonomous vehicles can do a lot of work that humans are doing today. Autonomous vehicles can also be used for border patrols and things like that. Where it's no man's land, and you don't want to put people in danger. So it might be more conducive for autonomous vehicles to operate in those segments. Autonomous vehicles can also operate very well in remote locations, in mines, and in places like that where individuals wouldn't like to operate in. Fleet segments, goods transport might be on highways. There would be segments that can be made, conducive for autonomous vehicles. So we would get there ultimately. It's like your smartphone. Today with 4G, we are able to do this video conferencing. A few years back with the 2G technology, definitely we wouldn't be able to do this virtual video conference. So I think we have the technology, but I think it's just that the technology has to be enhanced. 5G is quite important, crucial for autonomous vehicles. And governments, have a big role to play in making the infrastructure ready for autonomous vehicles. For example, in Singapore, the government is very clear that the path forward is autonomous vehicles because of the aging population over here. Singapore is also conducive because it's a rule-based, system. Everyone follows the rules over here. So they're already developing certain towns to be made, with the right infrastructure that can talk to autonomous vehicles, making it conducive for autonomous vehicles to operate. So that's the future, but I think it's about 2-3 decades away. It'll happen in pockets, but overall it'll take at least 3 decades.
Okay. Good. Christie, one question from our participant. You talked about solar harvesting.
Yes.
And integrating that into the charging ecosystem as well. Do you think solar top vehicles, so having a solar panel on the top of the vehicle itself, is that the future? The top body to be made of solar panels is that the future?
We, Surya, we are using a solar roof on a vehicle, but solar roof would only be, the economics would work out if the vehicle is, I would say, a low voltage vehicle, not a high voltage vehicle. A high voltage vehicle with with a very large battery pack and large motors, then having a solar roof is not going to be very beneficial. But still today the thought process is going that having a solar roof is useful because it keeps the battery active. That means, for example, if you don't use the vehicle for too long, there can be issues with the battery. But with a solar roof, there is constant charging of the battery. Creep charging of the battery. But for a vehicle like ours, which is a low voltage vehicle, a low speed vehicle, a lightweight vehicle, we would be able to extract about 20 to 30 kilometers of solar powered by solar every day. which would be, basically free miles for the driver.
Okay. So now one question I have, Christie, and see, while growing up, we used to hear the names of Hero, Honda, Yamaha, the TVS, Suzuki, and so on. Today, in the electric side, in the two-wheelers in India, the front line, Ather and Ather, Revolt. Are we done with the traditional OEMs? Are we done with those traditional names, or they are going to bounce back? What is your feeling in this ecosystem?
Yeah, see, the automobile industry is very huge. Today there are about 1.2 billion vehicles out there in the market. And if we have to replace all of these 1.2 billion plus fossil fuel vehicles in the market, it is going to take us at least a few decades. So there is an opportunity for a lot of new players to come in and capture some part of the market. But going forward, legacy automakers, they already have their investments in ICE vehicles, and it will take some time for them to turn around. And there's a lot of mindset change that needs to also happen, because you're not traditional systems, processes, way of doing business is not going to be profitable anymore when it comes to an electric vehicle. So it will take some time for them to change, but I think they would be able to quickly jump into this space. It would be also easy for them to jump into this space because they also have a lot of supply chains and networks in place. Um, Startups will be able to make inroads, I would say, strong inroads, and maintain a market share if they focus on niche segments. But if you operate in the segments that the large manufacturers are in already, it's just a matter of years before they kind of catch up with you.
Right. So true. And do you think that the distribution centers and the dealerships that they have right now, when it comes to the legacy OEMs, the network can be leveraged in the future to meet the micro factories or the micro assembly plants that we are talking about?
Yes, yes. I think the auto majors will have to rethink their entire dealer network for one, and also the business model. Because dealers made money not exactly from sales of a vehicle, but they made money from service and space for the vehicles. And with electric vehicles, maintenance is going to be very, very low. And replacement of parts is also going to be very low. So there is no business model, over there for service and space like it was in the past. So, so it would make sense for looking at converting these large workshops that most of these dealers have into micro factories. So they will have to then look at redesigning the entire vehicle and looking at how vehicles can be, customized for consumer needs. For example, in Singapore, Hyundai is setting up a factory where they're saying you can customize the vehicle that you want, and then you can come to the factory and see the vehicle being produced. So it's not manufacturing per se. In a way, what Hyundai is also setting up over here is a micro factory. So with electric vehicles, for example, every vehicle can be customized, and truly customized in that sense. And I would say that is a big opportunity. But then it requires a complete rethink of manufacturing, of dealerships, and of sales and service and things like that.
Okay. So, Christy, one last question I think we have from the audience. Do we see a future for ultra capacitors versus the batteries, or do we see ultra capacitors becoming more relevant in the ecosystem in order to have effective regeneration?
Yeah. So ultra capacitors are very useful for capturing of regen energy. In Singapore, for example, they're trialing out a bus which has a hybrid battery, which is ultra capacitors plus your lithium. But basically, this bus travels within the campus and in defined stops. It gets a fast charge when it stops to pick up passengers. So in those 1 minute or 2 minute of stop that a bus does, it gets recharged, and this recharge happens because of the ultra capacitor battery pack that they have over there. Ultra capacitors don't hold energy for too long, so every two bus stops or three bus stops away, they kind of charge this bus. So hybrid battery packs, I think, would come into play, and it would be built for purpose.
Yeah. So, Christy, I think we have wrapped up all the questions, and it's a very, with a lot of patience, you have answered all the questions that have been there. Obviously, this journey is evolving, and we are all, all the participants also are playing, trying to. I know quite a few of them are moving over from the IC engine world uh, to the electric ecosystem. So it's still evolving thought process in their minds. But what we have seen is a sudden acceleration in India post this COVID scenario with two elements. One is the push towards energy independence coming from the government side, and the second is the anti-China wave that has spurred up the component level work that is happening. So again, how do you see, is this a ball which has now rolled and won't stop, or do you see that a lot of ups and downs are still yet to come in this industry?
Yeah. So for one, the electric vehicle, path is now kind of well defined. There is no stopping it. We have crossed that part of no return, kind of in a way. Um, uh, there is a lot of progress that has happened in electric vehicles. And talking of China, all you need to do is go onto Alibaba and search for any type of vehicle, and you'll find hundreds of such vehicles out there on listed on that site. China has over 200 vehicle manufacturers. They have over 100 battery manufacturers. Almost every province in China has, the government is kind of funding and operating, or jointly manufacturing electric vehicles. If you go to Shenzhen, for example, the entire bus fleet is today electric. The taxi fleet is completely electric. And there is a lot of progress that has happened in China. Um, Likewise, Tesla at a different angle is taking, as is now shaking up the entire premium and luxury segment of the automobile industry. And today, Tesla is the most valued automobile company in the world. So there is a no. So I think there is no stopping electric vehicles anymore. But electric vehicles are not like your ICE engines, which remain very stable for close to 100 years. And if you look at even enhancements or progress or development, it's been very, very, very minor over these years. But with electric vehicles, I think you can't stop. You can't say I've done it and it's done. It's going to change very rapidly over the next 2-3 decades. The entire industry has to be ready for change happening at a very constant pace, almost similar to the IT industry or the computer. So from computers, from mainframes and minis, we move to desktops, and then to laptops, and then to tablets, and then to mobiles, and then the applications and everything else also changed very rapidly. Uh, Today, the banking industry has changed because of this. The travel industry has changed because of this. Almost every industry has got impacted by by the advances that happened in computing. Likewise, with e-mobility, I would say a lot more industries are going to get impacted. Convergence is going to take place. Software is replacing a lot of hardware in the automobiles. Yeah, and what we know is, what is. I mean, even designing a vehicle, I've seen that over the last 4 years, so much of change has happened that we need to constantly keep iterating to make use of these advancements that are happening in this industry. So change is going to be the new constant for the automobile industry, and it's going to be very difficult for legacy automobile professionals who are used to very slow pace of change, used to delivery, what to say, product life cycle development of many years. Used to having vehicles out there in the market for decades in some cases. Here everything is going to change. So where are we moving? So we're moving from electric drivetrains, we're moving to connected, we're moving to shared, we're moving to autonomous, we're moving to road and air. So ultimately, I would say 3 decades from now, there would be vehicles that are designed to operate both on the road and in air. Airbus has come out with a good concept, pop-up concept, which is a platform which is used on the road and which is also used in the air. So convergence, technology, software, electronics, like fly-by-wire, drive-by-wire is something that is also catching up in this industry, which means that you no longer need your steering wheel or your brake pedals. So the kind of professionals that we need in the industry is also going to be very varied. The percentage of software engineers to automobile engineers, the mechanical engineers, the ratio is now moving towards software engineers. So it's going to be a very exciting place to be in if you can handle change, if you can handle this constant innovation that is going to happen in this industry.
Thanks a lot, Christie. So, any parting thoughts for the audience?
Yeah, so I would say we all have to move towards clean energy and clean transportation. I think there is no choice right now. I think the climate crisis is on us. Very frequently we can see all the climatic issues that are happening around us. So we have no choice but to stop using fossil fuels. I think we allowed this industry to operate for too long, to pollute our environment for too long. And I think we all have to do a part in making this change happen. Luckily, we live in the southern hemisphere. We are blessed with a lot of solar energy, and it's up to us to now make use of free solar. That is, the feedstock solar is free for everyone. So make use of the free solar feedstock. Capture that energy and then use it to power our homes, use it to power our vehicles, and make our environment much cleaner for all of us.
Thanks, thanks a lot, Christy, and thanks for your spending this time on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon with us. And it is really a pleasure, and we definitely really thank you for all the good things you keep on sharing on LinkedIn. And we wish you all the success with Surya EV.
Thank you.
And we would like to have you again with us when you have a vehicle in the background, and right, so we wish you all the best for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shekhar, and thanks to everyone for participating. And I think together, let's make our world a better place for all of us and for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Bye. Bye, Shekhar.